So great to have you for another edition of the DueDash Startup Lounge. So we're going to have a great session. But before we come to this, I just want to make sure that you also know really what is DueDash about, what we're going to talk about today. So for that, maybe as a quick intro first, what is DueDash? What are we even doing here? DueDash is a platform that enables really startups, investors, the whole investor relation process, really making sure that you as a startup actually are able to convince investors, have the right data in place, and get the funding that you deserve and want, but also at the same time enabling the investors to have a great way of actually managing all the startups, all the exchange, and taking that forward from where on. If you're interested, if you haven't signed up on DueDash yet, you should definitely sign up on the platform. We're definitely going to talk about this a bit later as well. So on the DueDash.com, you can get started with that. What we also do, and we're going to talk about this today, is while you go through the process of fundraising, reaching out to investors, and Varun here actually pitched over 150 times already to investors. So he really knows how to do that. The thing is that you encounter is you will get a lot of pushback from investors, difficult questions. We would call these curveballs. So imagine this, you're like on a slate of ice and we're just trying to throw you off. And because of that, we created a course called the Dash to Investability to prepare you exactly for these questions and building a company that is worth investing in, because that's not something you will learn in school or from anybody else. This is an interactive self-guided digital course which you can go through. And what I will tell you, we have a special offer for you today. We're going to share this during the session. So that course will be available for you with a 75% discount off, so just for 77 USD instead of 300 during the session. So it will be shared, and we're going to talk about this later on. But just to already let you know, this is really how to take your fundraising forward and what is really needed if you want to have success with investors. We are also supported by a lot of different partners, accelerators, incubators, service providers, who really want to make sure that we and our vision actually come to fruition, making startups investable and ensuring that all the startups investors have a better time, a data-driven relationship that can be established. So also check out our page to learn more about our partners. And if you want to learn more about any of these or DueDash, just write me. I will also be in the chat. And as I mentioned, I will share the gift that we announced in before the session also in the chat, and we're going to talk really much about this. But now I want to give it to Nikhil as the host, and his guest Varun to take this forward. And let me just put a pin on you both, just that you guys are visible. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Varun, for making time for this edition of Michael Madan's Founder Lounge. There are a lot of questions I have, I can't even, if we could have a longer session. The great part is that this seems to be a very intimate set of people here. So, you're going to have a lot of questions, and my original idea was to break this whole thing down in two parts. This session, one is I'll ask you a few questions, and since you are a very successful founder and you've raised some amazing capital at an early stage, there are a lot of questions coming from, would be coming from the audience here, because they would like to know how you did it. And I think Michael already introduced, gave a segue to this, in the beginning of the session, just to build a foundation, saying that, look, there are more than 150 investors you pitched to. So we want to learn that story. But before that, welcome everybody. Welcome to this amazing conversation we're going to have with Varun today. He is a CEO of ChargeUp, which is basically a battery swapping infrastructure for electric vehicles. We're going to have more conversations around what kind of vehicles, and he's already raised $2.5 million as his pre-Series A, or rather a seed round. So Varun, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Nikhil. Thanks a lot and welcome everyone. So the CEO and founder of ChargeUp. At ChargeUp, we are building Bharat's largest battery swapping network. Our focus market is electric two and three wheelers. And interestingly, if 93% of the EVs comprise of two and three wheelers. So we are solving for the range anxiety and the capital investment into the batteries. Little background: I come from northeastern part of India, Guwahati, from a business family. Now shifted to Delhi, and my first startup was into solar. So I have always been a clean tech guy. But ChargeUp gave me an opportunity not just as a clean tech, but also to impact the livelihood of the whole driver community. Because today, if we see, our lives are dependent on those deliveries, be it from Amazon or be the last mile connectivity. So at ChargeUp, that's our focus area, delivering better livelihood and growth for these drivers. So battery swapping is one of the ways how we are delivering it.
Amazing. I think that's so. So you talked about ChargeUp. You talked about how you impacting lives, and then also it's a clean tech play. If you don't mind, and this is going to set the tone for the conversation today. Imagine, this bunch of people out here, and I'm going to put you in a spot, Varun.
Sure.
These bunch of people out here are investors or potential investors, right?
Okay.
How would you pitch to them in 60 seconds? This is where we learn.
So just two things. As we are building the Bharat's largest battery swapping network, in next 3 years, every food or parcel delivered in India, in every household, will be powered by ChargeUp. That's what we are building. So it's like an ecosystem where it's an indispensable part of the whole e-commerce industry or the last mile connectivity. So I think less than 60 seconds, I would try to push that.
How big is the market, in your opinion, what you're solving for?
Nikhil, currently there are more than 3 million electric two and three wheelers in India, which is combined more than the EVs sold in China. So if I look at the market size today specifically for battery swapping, if we talk about, that's more than 7 billion USD.
7 billion USD in India alone.
In India alone.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the total addressable market.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think you're gunning to be one of the most dominant players in that market. So how soon do you think, what is the size of the market you think you'll be able to acquire in next 3-5 years? Just to give people or these investors today a feel of scale of your ambition.
Sure. So Nikhil, we are we have a plan in next 5 years to onboard 1 million EVs on ChargeUp platform, to power 1 million EVs. When we say that, so we are talking about on the business side, that's almost, I would say, 15% of the market we are talking about.
15%.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this market is growing at a 40% CAGR. So I think this is going to be one of the fastest growing industry for sure.
So when did you start ChargeUp?
We started in 2019. We started doing our research and survey in 2018, but 2019 officially we launched ChargeUp.
And today, how big is the infrastructure? How many point of sale?
So, Nikhil,
points of
currently
service?
we have 150 battery swap stations, and at an average, we are adding one station per day to our network.
Wow, wow, wow. That's quite substantial growth. So, audience, if you have any questions, we're going to start talking about how he went about raising his seed round of $2.5 million. So if you have questions, keep them coming so that we can combine and then we can start asking. A couple of questions. How's been your startup journey so far?
Nikhil, startup journeys, it's never a straight line. So there are definitely ups and downs, and I think we have been fortunate to see the COVID period in this whole. We started in 2019 and 2020, the COVID thing happened. So that made us definitely learn a lot, change bit on the business model, uh, make it more, I would say, agnostic to such situations. I would say, but any industry when you start, if you are the first one to start a new concept, there's more roadblocks in that, because till a year back we have been answering a question of why swapping over charging, why not charging. But in last 1 year, the type of tailwind we have seen, Indian government has announced a policy for battery swapping specifically. So now that has actually made people see that, okay, swapping is the way forward for the growth of this EV ecosystem. And I'm lucky enough to have a good co-founder with me to share the ups and downs in this whole journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. Team makes all the difference, right?
Absolutely.
It's very heavy lifting in the beginning, and the more diverse skill set you have, that's always an asset. Very interestingly, I'm just trying to tell you a sense of how DueDash is organized, the IR platform. It actually calibrates, and I'm sure you've already experienced it as part of DueDash, that it calibrates every startup on 5 simultaneous dimensions, which is basically team, which you just talked about. Timing, I think that was perfect, which you also touched upon briefly. It was an implicit mention rather. Then traction, and I'm going to come to that part very, very quickly. Then, of course, the technology, and then technology or the product, and then TAM, the size of the market. So, once you start checking all these boxes and all the arrows pointing towards north, usually we see that fundraising becomes a breeze.
Right.
Coming to this, and I'm going to go back to the early days of Charge Up. So how many times did you actually change the product? I'm going in the direction of product market fit, and then I'll ask you a couple of other questions around that as well.
So, Nikhil, we didn't change the product, but yes, we definitely changed the, I would say, the distribution model here, or even the business model. When we started, it was more of a asset-heavy business where we were buying these batteries, lithium batteries, and putting on the swap station. What eventually changed is we made it an asset-light business. And when I said distribution, when we started, it was like one swap station. The driver is attached to one station, coming back for a swap, back to a swap station. What we changed that, let's give him access to multiple swap points, so that it should be within his route and he doesn't have to, take a detour for that. So we changed a bit on the business model and the distribution side.
So the amendments or any pivots, as they are called, was on the business model side, not predominantly on the technology side. I recall you mentioning, and I think I've seen your deal also very closely. You mentioned that you have built a app infrastructure also on top, which is basically very interactive. It's a driver ability app. So just tell us about it, like how do both these infrastructure and the app kind of cooperate with each other?
So Nikhil, we every battery we have a fitted IoT within that, so that gives us a real-time data. Now, how does the tech layer helps us? Is firstly to maintain an uptime for the batteries, to know the performance of the batteries, to give a safe and reliable experience to the driver. Secondly, also we measure a lot of the user patterns, the driver patterns, his driving routes, his kilometers, how much he's doing, his driving patterns. Uh, Plus, we have our a transaction app for the swap stations for the dealer locations, where every transaction is being recorded on a real-time basis. So we know what are the peak hours, what are the off-peak hours. Um, you know, so uh, what I'll say, going ahead, definitely tech and data is going to be the major moat around this whole business. Because today, a driver, whether he's visiting swap station 1 or swap station 10, for him the experience has to be seamless and same.
Got it. Got it. So, I mean, you're doing an amazing work, and I think adding one station a day is a phenomenal achievement. I think that basically increases your number of nodes, and then obviously it increases the number of accessibility, and that creates a completely other level of reliability for the drivers. I'm gonna go to start discussing a little bit more about your capital raise part, right? And again, I'm gonna kind of try and put you in spot first. So this is the first time around. You come from a business family, that's I understand. You have some experience, building businesses in the past, including solar. So you were already in this. So you understood the nuances of everything related to business.
Right.
Fundraising is a different animal altogether when you're trying to start acquiring capital from external sources who don't know you. There is a lot of tendency of, at least when we receive a lot of pitch decks every day.
Okay.
And the intention is that, okay, I have nothing, give me the money to build out the product. So effectively what they are saying is, look, I have this presentation, I have this brilliant idea. Now somebody should fund it to build it out. Okay. How true is that? I mean, does that really work? Because yours is a capital intensive business. So how was your experience out there?
So Nikhil, I'll just first correct one. So our is not a capital intensive business because we work on an asset light model. So all the assets what we procure are on lease from financial institutions.
Oh, okay. So understood.
All the stations what we build, we don't build it from scratch. So we utilize a dealer network who are into some ancillary business of automobile, and we utilize their space and manpower on a revenue sharing basis. So we don't have any fixed cost for running these swap stations in this. So that's the beauty of the business model what we are running. Coming to the first question, on the equity side, see, so you're right. While in the fundraising thing, had to unlearn everything, and it was a completely different game altogether. When we launched Charge Up in 2019, and within 4 months of launch, we were getting we were in some program like Shark Tank, and we got a $500,000 check there, and that time we rejected it. Because our business model, product market fit was not ready that point of time. And by the time it was ready, of course, we had to go through that entire cycle of fundraising, which was not that easy. So that learning was, whenever you're getting good money and good people, you should take it. You should not wait for the right time.
But but you had something, right? I mean, a prototype or something which was a structure where how you're going to achieve.
We were even on the day one, we were like revenue making. We had a business which was already running. We had traction. After that, only we started the whole process of fundraising. It was not just conceptually on papers, and that's what I believe.
How easy?
You don't commit your money in the business, your time into the business first to build at least the what we say as a minimal viable product. You can show some traction that yes, this is acceptable. I don't think so. Taking money before that is a good idea.
Got it. But you've spoken to about 150 investors, as we understood in the beginning.
Right.
Do they have the propensity to invest also if there is no traction? Now, traction means different things in different businesses.
Right.
But revenue, of course, always is a golden metric. Anybody who's making revenue is okay, most welcome. It's an easy play. So. So walk us through that. Do you think that these 150 investors would just invest on a presentation file?
Not really. Not really. I don't think so. See, it also depends on the business and which sector you are into. See, let's say if I am a founder who has built a tech business in the past and now I'm talking about building another tech business. So then they don't look at the traction, but they are betting on the founder and what he has built in future. But when you're talking about a business in the brick and mortar space specifically, definitely just on papers, there are investors who do invest, but even then they are betting on the founders because it's the founder and the team which is the constant thing. Your product, your market, customers can change.
Got it. Got it. So you started off fundraising, you had prior experience in business. Tell me, after this, first round funding, which is $2.5 million, what are those 2-3 things you had wished you had known before you started raising capital?
Okay. I think firstly was definitely what are the right metrics to be discussed during the fundraising, and of course some negotiation skills were really important.
Mm-hmm.
And, actually we finished our fundraising just before the the government announced the battery swapping policy. Had we delayed it, then definitely there was a different tailwind to it.
All right. All right. So coming back to this whole thing, you're solving, the theme of the session is you're solving a real problem. How did you get this idea?
Nikhil, so I used to stay in the central Delhi, and this 2012 to 14 e-rickshaws, which are used normally for last mile connectivity, had started. So there was a lot of curiosity. We used to ride e-rickshaws and all, but while traveling in one of the ride, discussing with one of the driver in the conversation, got to know that they're spending 10 hours to charge the batteries. They have to every 6 to 8 months they have to reinvest into the battery. And when we just asked him that how many people face this problem, so he spoke about some 20,000 people in that single pin code. Now that number blew our mind, and then we started researching on it. That what is the population of e-rickshaws? What is this a common problem across all the stakeholders? So interesting. This one problem was not only for the e-rickshaw, but even for the vehicle manufacturer, for the financier, because this became a reason for default of EMIs from them. And India, if you see, 71% of the electric three-wheelers are driver-owned. These are not the fleet operators.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we understood that, okay, there is a large problem. And there was one concept very clearly in mind that, today when we buy a IC engine vehicle, we don't buy the fuel for 3 years. So why the case in EV? Let them buy the vehicle and fuel be pay per use. So that's how the whole idea of battery swapping, battery as a service started.
You know something, this was the, if you recall, this is the eighth question, which is one of the curveball question that is asked in the DueDash 77 steps to investability. And I'm sure uh, one of the things which I wanted to, and I mean, you've kind of covered all these things, you've articulated these issues very, very clearly. So basically, what happened? Hello, what triggered you to take this decision that, okay, 2019, you didn't know COVID is going to hit.
Right.
You didn't know there is a uniform policy out there, but you
Right.
just saw that there's a market. But the beauty which I really picked out from your, what you just narrated, was that you were speaking to the customers who were willing to pay, and you created a corollary from the existing model of how we consume fuel to the future. So how often did you, how did you kind of, and I'm going to get specific, how did you compute the size of the market? You researched it, all right, but what was the computation like? How did you imagine that every rickshaw user is going to be able to lease the battery from you while they already have the batteries? So how did the math work? Tell us a little about that.
Nikhil, during our survey, actually, we had a lot of different opinions from vehicle manufacturers to battery suppliers as well. We reached out to every stakeholder in the business. And there was a lot of disappointment when everyone said that, okay, this is not going to work, what you're trying to do. Your battery will get lost. They won't pay so much per day. And end of the day, we discussed that, okay, we have certain conviction, and businesses are never designed to be safe. So let's take that risk and let's try out. As far as the numbers, frankly, we also did certain understanding that what is the numbers the rickshaw guys means, what is the demand side for the rickshaw driver. So we made certain people stand at the metro stations, do a counter, speak to the users who are using e-rickshaws versus autos, and we saw there is a huge demand which the drivers are not able to cater because of the battery issue. That means there is a earning potential for them. And that's the time when this whole e-commerce delivery network was growing, and even they were looking to shift to EVs. So we understood that our dependence as an economy on this whole driver community is way more than we can imagine today. So why not solve something for them? And truly, a lot of numbers came later, but initially we saw that, okay, there are 2.4 million e-rickshaws, which requires this problem to be solved. And that is how we just started the journey.
Amazing. Incredible. So there is one thing which is kind of coming back again and again to me. Is it that, so would it be safe to say that you actually put in your money first before you started raising capital, and made sure that the company became revenue positive before we went out?
Absolutely.
Who were your angel investors?
No, so the first set of money was invested by, as founders, we invested our own money. We first brought traction, we got the product market fit ready, we got all the pieces of battery technology, IT infra, financing model together, and then we started looking out for fundraise to scale it better. And funding is not about just capital. Today, in today's time, at least, capital is very easily available. What is required is smart capital, people who have seen the growth of startups, who can guide us and trust me, during this 150 pitches to various investors, there are a lot of things we learned during that process, during their question answers. And in fact, it was one of the investors who questioned us that, why are you buying these batteries? Why don't you get them on lease? So it was a learning process also.
And this is something which all of this is, interestingly, this is, I'm sure you've seen it already. These are covered in the 77 steps to investability course, right? So one question which I have, just before we move on to a stage where we start picking questions from the audience, what has been your biggest failure so far and what have you learned from it?
Just failure so far. I think we started the scale-up plan little late. We should have done that little early. And second, as I said, when money was available, we should have taken it. And
Okay.
I think these are two failures, but I don't see that failures. These are all learnings, I think. And yeah, one thing good that we did is at least that we always focused on building a good team from day one.
I mean, okay. And what would be the advice to the founders who are thinking about, either testing the waters or have, dived full head first into the process? What would be your advice to them?
Frankly, I'm too early to advise someone yet, but yeah, just one thing is, jump into the ocean and don't try to learn from anyone. Just everyone has a different story and a different path. So keep hustling. That's it.
Absolutely, Varun. As I say, starting up is something like, jump from the airplane and build the parachute while you're you're falling.
That's the best analogy.
All right. So I'm gonna let, since we are a very intimate group of people here, I'm gonna allow the people who ask this question to bring more interactivity. So I think the first question came from Rolf. Rolf, can you unmute yourself and ask the question, or you have a conversation?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur living in Norway. I'm selling steel buildings in Norway, also entering now soon into wooden constructions. And I was curious if your innovation may be suitable also for Norway, and if there is a possibility for a cooperation to do this in Norway and the European countries around us.
Thanks, Rolf. We haven't explored that, frankly. What's the market in Norway or the European countries? But I think the solution is going to work for every country, because as we know today, even in US or in China, the same solutions are being implemented now for the growth of EV ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, Europe is quite long. So I used to live in Spain 4.5 years, and Spain has 320 sunny days down in the south. So I would imagine that probably your solution would be suitable better maybe down there, and then in Norway, whom have snow and cold and dark 6 months of the year. But I'm either case very eager to explore, after this session, if we can meet up somehow and discuss the possibilities. I would be very interested.
Sure. Happy to discuss. Okay.
Thank you.
So his just to clarify, Rolf, his previous business was solar. This business is electric vehicle, battery swap, charger.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
So sun would not have non-availability of sun is not going to play a major role in success of that project.
Right. So you don't charge them with the sun. You just charge them with electricity.
Yeah, we charge them with electricity.
Okay. Okay. Have you explored adding solar to it, so it becomes more net zero?
Yes, we will be doing that. There are certain logistic challenges, but yeah, we are working on that.
Right. Well, when you get to that point, that's when I'm interested in discussing.
Sure.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Sumit Mishra, why don't you unmute yourself and ask the questions directly to Varun?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Nikhil. Hi, Varun.
Hi.
Great talking to you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely, Sumit.
Sure. So basically, we are a travel tech marketplace wherein we have created a marketplace where we are connecting ready-to-book tour operators to travelers. So we have over 1,500 tours worldwide with over 150 world-class operators, including the best brands in the world, and a few smaller operators operating from within India and outside. But so every time we go in front of an investor, we keep getting these questions that it's a very competitive market, and that is where we keep getting these questions over and over again, even after having a differentiator from what other startups are doing in the market. But we're still getting this question that it's a very highly competitive market. So how do we overcome that?
Okay. So, Sumit, you're asking about your startup to overcome a competitive market, or the question, is it competitive?
Yeah, so asking for our startup basically, that so even you would have gotten through the same thing, that there are a lot of people doing it, then why should we fund you basically?
Okay. Sumit, I think your best answers are given from your customers, that why they choose you above others, and if how many numbers of customers are choosing you, that itself answers the whole question. So I think it's just a time that if the focus is more on the customer, I think these answers will fade away. These questions will fade away.
Okay.
Sumit, I would also invite you to take the benefit of the campaign, the discount that we are currently running through this show. And I'm sure you'll be able to frame a lot of your answers to your investors through that. All right. The next question is from Mattia Nuti. Mattia, can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, hi everybody.
And show us your video as well.
Yep, here we are. I'm in the bedroom, so sorry for that. Thank you very much for this conversation. Is very full of information for us. I'm a founder of a startup, and Nikhil knows very well. And I'm asking you, Varun, how much time did you program to raise capital? I didn't understand if you already raised the capital, the 2.5 million capital or not, but how much time did you program to raise this capital? Because every time startup said we start the seed round on March and we end on June, and it's never happened. So how much time?
So thanks. I think what you're saying, if they're starting on March and ending on June, that's pretty early, I would say. Because what I believe, any fundraise, the whole starting the process and the money in your bank takes anywhere between 6 months to 9 months. There is a process of due diligence. They track your metrics, so you should have that much, timelines in hand to work on that. Certain cases, if you're lucky enough, then definitely it can be early, but that's a typical time frame.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mati, for your question. It takes time. It's a time-consuming process. It requires discipline. I'm sure Varun can attest to that. All right. I think the next question came in from, wait. I'm still searching. Faisal. Faisal, go ahead, unmute yourself, show us your video, and ask your question to Varun.
Hi, Varun. How are you?
Hi,
Nikhil. Nikhil, I just belong to a financial background, and I was working in Abu Dhabi Investment Authority for the past 10 years in investment banking area. After a long journey in financial, my question is that I started a venture of food startup, and I have developed a prototype in which we are onboarding the home chefs in the market. So our school of thought is that we should capture the max of the untapped market, where the home skills are quite well from women's side, to giving an empowerment to develop a journey and making an ecosystem with a price equilibrium, stability in the market, which is not happening now. So with some USPs in it. But my question is, if I build a prototype with a certain number before the launch, means I have created a prototype, I'm selling my USP in the market, I'm gaining the customer attention from the market, but the numbers and which will be growing in future, it's just the projection. So the main question is it feasible to go in the market to try to grab the VCs or investors directly, and which is the best mode to get engaged with the investors and VCs?
Okay. Nikhil, you want to answer that? Because
Varun, I'll take a stab at it after you've answered.
Faisal, I think it's all, as I said, it's a different people, different belief. But one thing I know at the starting of the any venture, I think it's the angels who typically take that bet instead of VCs at a very initial stage. So, but to build something and have some traction in place and then going into the market is definitely a better idea to do that. At least, doing one product at a time at one location, showing the journey at least for a few months, and then, going into the market.
So yeah, you meant that even though we have numbers, means we got the angel investment. Some of the investment I've done by myself in my project, and couple of friends joined together. So we got a reasonable amount for initial level for at least to run the business for 1 year, 3 months. But my concern is to expand the business. It's very difficult for me to do the hiring as a CMO, CTO, because whenever you go for hiring, it's quite expensive to hire them. So this is one of the difficult parts. So being as a CEO and founder, I have to manage each and everything, means from sales to the customer to the home chefs, and directly going for the technology side, making sure.
I guess that's the fun part, and why to tag a CFO or CTO here. Get some fresh talent of the block who will be more committed and they have a better learning curve, who can commit with you in that idea, or some of your colleagues from
Varun, what I have seen, especially in the marketing side, when you go with the youngsters, means whoever in the market, even though I'm not that much young now, means being 45. So if I go for the youngsters in the market, so what I have personally seen is that there is not that much means exposure to in those people to give the to grab the market. Yeah.
Faisal, I think we are here to understand. I think what Varun said was very powerful. If you don't have those talent, you don't have the ability to, so either there are 3 things which are happening. One, you've not been able to bring on a good set of initial founders who's willing to join you in the journey. So there is some weakness out there. You probably need to be very convinced about your narrative and how you're going to get there. A lot of people get excited and join when they believe and trust that you're going to be able to pull it off. That is one. So, and that is why you always want more than one founder or a team of founders, because initially it's dreadfully heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the point
so
is,
you need to,
when I'm trying to to tell the
Faisal,
project.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll give you 1 more minute because there are other questions also.
So I'm trying to get the people to onboard with me, but everybody expect a full type of ownership in the project. Means means with only the expertise they want to place, and they expect a type of number of equity, a reasonable amount, which is not been acceptable from my side. This is one of
that is I think you need to there are a lot of articles we have, and I think that again these are the kind of issues which the 77 steps would help you go through. So go ahead, make use of that time. But believe you me, this is initially this is what you need to do. You'll once you have raised capital, got the traction, as Varun said, it'll be much easier. Okay, there have been one more question coming up from Shilpi. Shilpi, why don't you unmute yourself and ask this question? I think, go ahead.
Hi, Nikhil. Hi, Varun, and everybody here. I am actually writing a book on marketing, and the gist is on how to promote your product. And Varun, being such an achiever, I would like to propose Varun to be my case study in my book. Yeah.
I think that's pretty early for us. We have not yet achieved any such major thing. There's a long way for us to do that.
Okay, we can connect in person and talk at the end.
Sure.
I'm not in a hurry. I'm in
So,
New Delhi.
Varun, you're being very humble here. But
Nikhil, I believe that the whole startup thing make things more glorified. But the real value is until unless you become an indispensable part of your customer as a company, to create value. I think till then it's all a story until unless we have built something on that.
Unbelievable. I think these are the, this is a amazing, advice. And I think Shilpi, why it reinforces that he's the right guy for your case study. Unbelievable. Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate your humility here. Any further questions, guys? Any further questions? Otherwise, I can keep asking many questions that I have. Varun, what is one common myth about startups which, from your point of view, you want to debunk? And this is very, very valid for a lot of founders out here on the event, on the chat.
Nikhil, there's a good and bad both. Actually startups have become really, it seems really cool thing to do. So as you said, a lot of people start on an idea and and the focus is on funding most, I think. And trust me, after taking the funding, you're riding a tiger where you can't stop and you can't get off it. So, I really admire companies like Zerodha, Ease My Trip, who haven't taken any funding and have scaled up to this level of business. So I think it's more of a question every founder needs to understand that if there is really a need for funding for a startup, then you should take it. Or or otherwise it's more about better disciplined financial discipline into the company where you can also build up a large company with this. So I think there's a myth that startups are cool, fundraising is easy, and after fundraising things will be sorted. Actually, after fundraising, the real problem starts.
Yeah, investor reporting.
Frankly, as a founder, you love to, if you're really passionate about to solve a problem, and you'd love to spend time on the product, on the customer, on the other aspects. But the irony is that your 50% time goes into the fundraising.
Correct. It's a pretty tedious process, and I think I'll take this opportunity to tell people about our investor relations platform, which you use as well, to how you keep on top of the investor relations through the platform.
Someone is leaving a job and starting a startup. He wants more independence. He wants what he wants to do. He wants to do what he loves. But it's irony is it's the other way around. Now you can't do what you love; you have to do what you don't love.
Amazing. Yeah, that's correct. And so I'm sure, throughout this startup journey, you would have met a lot of people, a lot of resources you might have seen. What have been like, the worst resources that have been very detrimental to you along this journey?
So a lot of such free advices which comes along your way that you should be doing this, you should be focusing on this. Why are you doing battery swapping? Why aren't you doing revenue aggregation for the e-rickshaw guys? So as a founder, while fundraising, you are answering these questions day in day out. It becomes little, and at least we expect the guys who are questioning us to have some respect and how they're questioning us. So a lot of time they try to pull out things like, as a founder you don't know anything and this is what you should have done. So that's a little downside, I would say.
So so you advise, good advice and bad advice both come. You
Yeah.
need to be able to filter out what is of value to you and what is of.
Absolutely. That's what I said. During that whole journey, a lot of good advices actually helped us to, build a better business model for the startup.
So tell me something, and I'm gonna, since we don't have questions coming from audience, and I have some more. I mean, I'm just inquisitive. How did you go about building out such a team which was willing to, do the heavy lifting in the beginning? And I think it's going to probably help a lot of people out here to really focus on the core element for the early stage startup.
I think in today's time, I think any startup or business, the core thing is only about team, and team. I don't think so any other challenge is there. And I said that's the only constant. So for a startup, definitely where we are constrained with budgets, we can't look at higher packages and all. We look at people. We look at more of a younger people who are, more curious, who get more excited about it, that new idea to pitch, to work on. And I have a core belief that people don't join or leave a company; they join or leave a good leader or a founder or the manager if they're recruiting. So team building still remains one of the biggest challenge, and we are still working on that and trying to build. Though we are lucky enough to have some really great people working with us on this, and as per my experience, I've seen the fresh guys. They come with more questions, questioning the status quo. So it's more fun working around them, instead of just coming with those baggages and working on those ideas. And of course, they need more liberty and empowerment. You need to give them liberty to make decisions, make mistakes. I think that's something everyone wants, that authority.
Right. Amazing. So last couple of questions. Anybody from my team who has some questions, because this has been an amazing session. Mattia is asking another question. Mattia, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. So this is my question. With an MVP ready, everybody believes that traction comes, but traction need a lot of time, to create. You need a lot of time to create traction and marketing things and so on. But in the other side, you don't have enough time for investors, so because investor need traction, but if you want to create traction, you don't have enough time for investors. So this is like a circle. And what about you? What your thoughts about that?
I think if the first set of your first set of investors are your customers who actually believe in your product or solution, that probably if it's a new product, or let's say it's a me too product, but you are doing better than someone else, so they are the customers who are like, are a living example, or a proof of your workability of your product or acceptance of your product. So there are very rare cases or such products where there is no traction and investors have put money. So there are different reasons, and investors are smart enough; they know where they are putting their money in. So I think I believe that the traction is one of the most important thing, and if your customers are willing to pay you for that, so investors can wait. In fact, you don't need much money from the investors.
Okay, so your advice basically is create traction, then think about investors.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there has to be a rationale for the investment, but the first focus has to be the customer.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Varun.
Focus has to be the customer, and something, Varun, you mentioned something about hiring young people or making them part of it because they question the status quo. And you know what? That's the motto of my school as well, my business school. Question the status quo and confidence without attitude. That's all the time we had for today. Thank you very much, audience, for joining in. Thanks, everybody, for asking the questions. And a huge big thanks to you for making the time, Varun. And really appreciate it. Your story was very inspirational. We're learning so much. And hope to talk to you soon.
It was a good interactive session, and it was really fun to interact with everyone.
Yeah, but surprisingly, this was a very intimate session, which is very good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.